They can run anywhere from like on the really cheap side of things, maybe like $70 and up. And depending on the model you get, you can plug multiple microphones into it. And you can do safety recordings, which are like my favorite thing in the world because I don't follow my own advice and I never record things to -12. It's because one of my friends I record stuff with is a mumbler. Okay. Just, I'd like the record to state that.
I
Um,
like that you're calling somebody else out now,
yeah,
not
it's
me,
fine.
someone else.
He'll never hear this. So, what's great about some of these, like, and they're not that high end. You can spend like $100 and get one with this feature. What's great about them though is that you can record your normal track and then you can record an identical track in the background and have it like 6 dB lower so that if somebody moves forward and blows their mic out because they got too close, it's still safe. You can still have clean audio to edit after the fact. You know, likewise, some of them provide phantom power to your microphone. So I'm using a microphone that requires external power, and you can just power your microphone with it. You don't need to get an adapter or anything too crazy like that. Um, Not to mention, some of these are portable. The one I use for my own personal stuff is a portable digital audio recorder. It's like the size of a brick. I can carry it anywhere I want. It probably weighs as much as a brick, and I can record clean audio onto an SD card. For interview podcasts in person, this is great. Sometimes, maybe your interviewee can't come to your office. Maybe you have to do it in their office. Maybe a part of your podcast's appeal is that you record it in nature if you're doing like a nature podcast, whatever. That flexibility is important. And that's something that more than just making your show sound better because it opens you up to using better microphones and such, it also makes the content of your show better because it allows you to interview, your guest in their own area. It allows them to be like a bit more relaxed and give them that home field advantage in a way. And again, multiple channels, multiple microphones. That's great. That's more editing and stuff, but it'll sound better. On the microphone side of things, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet because otherwise I can see Alyssa starting to fall asleep already.
No, I'm learning a lot because
Yeah.
obviously I'm more the marketing person. I'm like, cool, you have your audio, great, or your video, great. Let's talk about it now. So this
Mhm.
is very much Nicholas's realm, and I mean, obviously, you can tell that there's a difference between how Nicholas's recording sounds and my recording sounds.
No,
So
you actually can't, but I'll get into that shortly.
okay,
Um,
never mind.
we're actually using the same exact mic, by the way.
Uh
Um,
huh.
it's just that mine. So this is a tangent that probably gets edited out, but or doesn't. I
Or
don't care.
maybe not.
Maybe not. The mic you're using, Alyssa, is actually my exact mic because the year you joined Headliner, Oliver like pinged me to help him find a microphone to buy everyone on the team. And I was like, oh, this is the mic I've been using for like 5 or 6 years. And they make a USB version of it. So there
Nice.
you go. We have the same exact microphone. And anyway, the microphones. If you want to upgrade a microphone, there are a lot of great mics out there. But as I kind of said earlier, the human voice, people, microphone manufacturers have kind of gotten the gist of how to make a human voice sound good on a recording. So, yes, you can splurge on nicer mics and they will sound better. But as is the case in most tech, you kind of hit like you kind of hit like lowered returns at a certain point. Once you get to good enough with your audio, buying better equipment will sound better, but it becomes cost ineffective. A $50 mic sounds worse than a $75 mic, but that $75 mic doesn't sound that much worse than a $100 mic, etc. And if you're looking for like specific types of microphones, so long as you use like a dynamic microphone or a condenser mic, you're fine. You just need to kind of do your homework a little bit and understand dynamic microphones don't require external power and they're a bit more durable and easy to use, while condenser mics require external power and there's a bit more, just a bit more work that you have to put into using them. But this is like a purely preferential thing. And honestly, if you just use like a decent budget mic, you'll be fine and you'll do great. There's a lot of like really popular podcasts that use just normal $100 microphones. It's more about the placement and your mic etiquette than anything, at least in my opinion. Oh, yeah, Shaka. to that. For all the video people out there, because we're still talking in-person interview podcasts, unless you're really dead set on sitting down and editing multiple cameras, which even though I'm a video nerd and I love editing multiple cameras and I edit this podcast as a multicam, I don't honestly recommend it unless you have like a dedicated video strategy and you're ready to sit down and synchronize multiple cameras and then edit the episode and, like all that kind of stuff. You probably don't need multiple cameras yet. You can just as well get away with doing like a decent camcorder or a mirrorless camera and just having one good angle for your entire podcast. So, an example of a podcast that does this, they cheat because they actually have multiple cameras. They just never use camera 1 and 3. Linus Tech Tips podcast is a live streamed show every Friday, and literally they just put camera 2 down and they just film it for like 3 hours. And it's great. I love that podcast. But it goes to show that, like, yeah, you really don't need to go crazy on the production side of things. One decent camera that you can sync to your audio is all you need. Also, not to kind of cop myself out a little bit here, we might just talk about video podcasting in the future eventually. So, maybe if you are curious, hold off and wait for that a bit.
Email us. Let us know if you want to hear it.
Email us, comment on the YouTube upload. Be like, right? No, don't cop us out. Like, give us the video podcasting spiel, and we'll do that. Moving on to the remote podcast setup. If you record virtually, there's a good chance you're doing what we're doing right now and doing it through Zoom. And I want to make my case for why you don't necessarily need to stop using Zoom, because it's Zoom. Everyone knows how to use it. It's by far the easiest way to record your podcast virtually, and it has a pretty generous free tier. On top of that, it's also home to, and I pulled stats for this, it's home to 70% of remote podcast interviews. And that's according to the 2024 State of Podcast Guesting from Interview Valet. So, yeah, that's a lot. It's the vast majority of podcasts are recorded over Zoom if they're remote. And for good reason. Like I said, it's easy to use. It allows you to get separate audio files for each of your speakers. It does record video. And yeah, it's Zoom. Once again, I sound like a broken record, but like, Zoom is a household name for a reason. And honestly, this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about quality and why our mics sound identical, even though mine should technically sound a bit cleaner. If you're doing an interview-based podcast and you feature guests that are busy or not tech savvy, I'm not calling Alyssa out here. I'm just saying in general, there's a good chance that using Zoom will actually help because it's easier to set up and because the audio gets compressed on it. So our mics are going to sound similar because Zoom has their own like kind of back end that is doing some of the harder stuff like noise removal and, stuff like that. And that's valuable because, again, if you're interviewing someone who doesn't work with microphones or computers, you just want them to be able to sit down and record the interview. You don't want them to be like that concerned about whether or not they're clipping. So there is a strong case for using Zoom. I love it. And yeah, like, look.
And it's free.
And most important of all, like, again, we want our audio to get to good enough. And Zoom like makes that super easy. So yeah. That said, there are places you can go if you want to upgrade your podcasting setup and use other tools, and they do offer higher video quality and recording on mobile and all that stuff. But they're paid tools and they're running on subscriptions. And also, again, it is something you need to like work with the person you're interviewing. You need to like actually explain to them, oh, we're going to record it on an external app. And that might just make your production a lot more complicated. On to the last category of podcaster we're going to cover today. And this is stepping away from interviews entirely. Here are some things you can do if you have like a pre-written podcast, or use a lot of statistics, or you just have like B-roll. Maybe you're like more of a vodcaster than a podcaster. So you have like cutaways and sound effects and stuff.